Dirk Durham, welcome to the podcast, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, brother. So let's start with the size of this sack that you advertise on your YouTube channel.
The one that I keep all the presents in, like Santa
Yes,
Claus,
that
right?
one, the Santa Claus
That
sack. That's
sack.
exactly right.
uh,
So I think everyone knows who you are. I'm just going to go under that assumption. Um, One of the things that I thought was interesting in listening to, I think, the Western Huntsman, as well as your last Cutting the Distance podcast, was conversation around etiquette
yeah,
and some of the stuff that I guess my question to you is how much of that do you think is existing hunters that don't have the same level of etiquette, as maybe you seen a generation ago versus the people that have just started hunting the late onset, I guess, is what you're tagging people.
yeah. I think I've seen kind of bad etiquette from other hunters my whole life, so I don't think it's just the new um, adult onset hunter, if you
Yeah.
will. But I do think, it's out there, it's everywhere, and maybe sometimes competition. Um, People feel like hunting is a competition, and competition will bring out the worst in people. I know if you've ever been to a softball game or a basketball game in the gym, and you'll see some nice folks from the community. You recognize maybe some quiet lady or a quiet man, and they get into a gymnasium where they're rooting for their favorite player or team, and the competition will bring out it'll bring out the beast in people, which and maybe that's kind of where it is in the elk woods or the deer woods. People are feel like they have to try or compete against other hunters to make sure they get their own meat to take home or whatever, and sometimes that's not a pretty sight. But I feel like there's a lot of maybe adult onset hunters who just haven't had that mentorship, maybe, or people to kind of get show them the way of like, hey, this is how you act in the woods, and this isn't cool, and this is cool. And I kind of like to take it for that. I feel like maybe sometimes people just haven't been taught the right way. And since I have the opportunity to get on a podcast here and there and kind of talk, and maybe I can kind of help spread that message, kind of do the right thing. And, whether it's that or maybe seminars or just talking to people face to face, I think we just all got to kind of spread that word of be good to each other and kind of golden rule type stuff. There's a lot of, I mean, we could sit here and talk for hours about etiquette and different instances, but I feel like the golden rule applies. Do unto others what you'd have done to you.
What do you
And
think?
you
What
can't
are
go
the,
wrong that way.
yeah, what are the most common mistakes that you see, the late onset guys making? Just from the standpoint of the etiquette thing, or just maybe just not even doing the right thing when they're out there in terms of the way it impacts other hunters.
Well, I think maybe they will maybe crowd in on other hunters. They don't
Right.
stop and pause for a second and think, yeah, yes, this is public land. Absolutely. We all have the right to be out there, but they don't take a moment to pause and think, well, gee whiz, I don't know if I would appreciate someone trying to get between a bull elk and me that I'm trying to get, or a deer or a turkey or whatever it is. Um,
Do you think
I,
they're do you think that they're doing it purposely, or do you think that they in many situations are doing it due to a lack of knowledge, just in terms of what the space should be? Because I guess the reason I ask that is, being an East Coast guy, where we're all sitting in trees by and large, and working smaller pieces of property, and then this is my first Western hunt coming up this fall, but just the vastness of it, and really getting your arm, somebody like me or somebody who hasn't done it before, getting their arms around what we would think would be a ton of space, but really isn't a ton of space when it comes to probably hunting elk or something like that.
yeah. Yeah. And I think maybe no fault of their own, just like you kind of pointed out there. um, people may not understand or acknowledge that, what an ample amount of space is, right?
Right.
For us folks who live in the West, who have grown up in the West, hunting for the last 30 years or something, we used to enjoy a time of, you know, you go to the woods, and if you broke down in your pickup, or if you um, hurt your leg or something out on a trail somewhere, you were in real serious trouble, because nobody was probably going to come by, because there was nobody, there was not a lot of people in the woods at that time. Fast forward today, where there's a lot more people in the woods, it seems like. Um, it was kind of nice to have that freedom, right? We all kind of go hunting to escape society and escape all the modern conveniences of life. And I guess a kind of perspective, or how you see the world is kind of your reality to it. So if I've always thought, if I could go out and not see another living person in 5 days,
Right.
that's really good. That's good distancing. Whereas um, someone from the Midwest or the East or South, that they're not used to that kind of solitary life, to where if they just don't see somebody walk up right under their tree stand that day, then they're pretty good. Maybe
Yeah.
the perspective gets a little skewed. So I feel like, for the most part, the Western hunting experience, people are looking for seclusion. They're looking for solitary hunting. They're not looking for somebody angling to get in between them and their quarry purposefully. And I think that's kind of this perspective of folks who are just trying to get away.
Is that possible anymore to get that kind of seclusion? Is that doable with the amount of people that are coming out there? Is it, can you go out for 5, 7 days and not see anybody else anymore?
It depends on your level of physical fitness and maybe your mode of transportation. If you have horses, or maybe some kind of animals to pack all your gear, and you can go deep, a lot of times, depending on the state, you can definitely do that. But you're going to have to go a lot further and a lot uglier terrain features than you did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. That's for sure. Um, and then, depending on the area and the people going there, you may see another person, like, it's not a big deal if you see somebody across the hillside somewhere else, um, but and a lot of times, depending on people's effectiveness when they're hunting,
Mm-hmm.
some folks, they're still learning. They don't understand how to hunt. They don't understand how to navigate the country. So they may just walk out a trail and sit next to the trail and watch for a while, and then walk back to their camp. Whereas some people get out and get off trail and beat around the brush a lot. So I just kind of feel like, it's just, there's a lot of different ways to experience it, but I feel like there is opportunities to get out there and get away from people. You're just going to have to use a lot more boot leather and sweat and blood to get to those kind of places, for sure. I always say, the older I get, the harder
Mm-hmm.
I'm having to hunt. I did not hunt this hard when I was in my 20s. I can promise you this.
Yeah.
I hunt super hard compared to what I did in my 20s. And for a couple factors, um, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So when I was in my
Right.
20s, I didn't know what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, now I know what it takes to go to these places, but also I feel like we have to go to some more rugged country just to get away from people. So, and I'm willing to do that. So, some people are not, but I'm definitely willing to do that. And because I'm always, I'm not just looking for the elk or the deer. I'm looking for a trophy experience. I just want to get out there and get away from people and enjoy some time. So,
Yeah, I saw that film that you did, Ghost Bulls of the North, and that looked like some nasty country that you were jamming in right there.
oh
Is
yeah.
that pretty typical? Because that was Idaho, right? You live in Idaho?
Um, yeah,
Okay.
I didn't ever did say on the film what what state it was, but yeah,
It kind of looked like it
it
to me,
was
just
it
based
was
upon.
Idaho.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean that was some nasty terrain. And you did that? How many days were you out there doing that?
Um, I think we have I fit it into like a 3 day
Okay.
scenario on the video, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a little longer than that. You know, if you take out the days of nothingness, you know, you have to make it watchable, right? So you take, let's say you have 5 days, you're there, um, and 2.5 of those days are nothing really
Nothing going
happened.
on.
Nobody wants to watch that if
Yeah,
you're trying to fit it into a
that's right.
45-minute video. So
Mm-hmm.
we're but there about 5 days, but we got 3 full days of good content. But I don't know how good it was. I mean, it was us walking through the brush, and there's some sketchy video of a bull or two there. So but that's kind of the reality of hunting that kind of country. And sometimes I gravitate towards that stuff because, you know, there's maybe less elk and definitely less people that
Mm-hmm.
want to go there. Because it's not, it's not that fun to wade through that nasty brush and those steep hillsides and all that. I mean, there's a lot easier places to hunt, definitely, and have a lot more elk, but you typically find more people in those places too. So,
And how much of your hunting are you doing closer to home versus how much do you go do out of state? You know, out of state tags, traveling, that kind of stuff during a season.
I typically like to have at least one other state to go hunt in besides Idaho. Just kind of depends on how the tags fall. You know, sometimes you're lucky to, you know, get a couple tags in, you know, in 2 different states in one year, and some years, you know, it's just you're stuck to Idaho. But Idaho, as if there's any non-resident elk tags left over after people turn them back in, residents can pick up those leftover tags. So I've been trying to pick up at least 2 tags a year in Idaho. That way I can bow hunt and I can rifle hunt as well.
So there usually are tags left over after that, after the
Yeah,
initial whatever, I don't know what you call it, a lottery or whatever they do in December. There is stuff
yeah,
left over.
yeah. So once they first go on sale, all the tags usually sell out pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But as we all know, life kind of happens,
Yeah.
and they have a period where people start turning tags back in. Let's say people, you know, Idaho is the first on the list where you can buy an elk tag. So people gobble up the tags, and then they put in to draw tags in other states, and then they draw tags in other states, you know, let's say, or maybe the state they live in or whatever, as far as non-residents go, and they end up getting a good tag, and they'll, you know, they have a limited amount of time, so they'll turn back that tag, or maybe they have life issues, you know, maybe family emergencies or whatever comes along, and they decide to turn that tag back in. And then after a certain date, I can't remember, I think it's midsummer sometime, I think it's July, maybe, they put those return tags back on sale for other non-residents, or for the residents of Idaho to buy
Mm-hmm.
at the non-resident price. But what you'll find is if you're looking for one of those really good, hard to get tags where they don't offer very many of them, Idaho has these zones called capped zones. So they limit the number of tags they sell in those
Mm-hmm.
for resident hunters.
Okay.
So, and for non-residents in those zones, then I feel like they're very limited, very limited to how many tags they offer. So, typically in a capped zone, for the most part, there's it's very good hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are some exceptions. If you look at some of the units or zones on the map that are in areas that are very wolfy or very wolf infested, um, those cap zones, they're not limiting the number of tags because how awesome of a quality of a hunt they're trying to put out there. It's more of the elk are in really big trouble in that unit, so they really want to limit how many tags will be sold.
Gotcha. And so the how what's the change in the wolf situation or the wolf population? Has it always been like that in Idaho, or is that something that's changed over the last 10 to 15 years?
So we've always had wolves in Idaho, but the original wolves that were here didn't have a great impact on our large mammals, you know, our ungulates,
Mm-hmm.
deer, elk, moose population, really whatsoever. bears back in those days probably had the biggest impact on, on the spring births of calf elk, fawns, and calf moose. They were pretty hard on those animals, um, but wolves really didn't have a they didn't really have any skin in the game. Really, there were wolves around. There wasn't a lot of them, but you'd see their tracks. You'd hear them howl from time to time. At least the area that I grew up in, Idaho. And at that time, back in those days, that was one of the most elk rich areas in Idaho. Then in 1995, they transplanted some Canadian gray wolves in Idaho, and within a few years, their population spread like wildfire. Um,
What was the rationale for that?
they wanted to bolster or bring back the wolf. They wanted wolves to be commonplace in Idaho, because they're on the endangered species list, correct? So they wanted to to bring them back to Idaho and let them flourish, and they flourished really well. And then what happened was, their initial transplant of these wolves in Idaho, they had a certain number of breeding pairs and a population. And once they reached that, then they would allow the Fish and Game Department to manage these wolves, their numbers, through hunting. But what happened is they got tied up in lawsuits, in court battles. Every time they would try to delist the wolf as being not endangered any longer, then these um, animal rights groups or whatever would sue the federal government and say, hey, we need more research. We need to make sure these wolves are going to flourish, and if it's too soon to pull them off the endangered species list, basically. So that court battle went on for a decade, until they finally got those lawsuits to kind of stop, and then they were allowed to manage them. Well, the folks of Idaho know this, but maybe the people on the outside don't. But it wasn't a massacre. As soon as those wolves came off the endangered species list, it wasn't a massacre.
They're hard to hunt, right?
They're very hard to hunt. They're very
Right.
intelligent, and
Yeah.
they live in country that's remote, rugged, and brushy. So you know, um, they're a lot shorter than an elk. So in brushy country, you may be able to see an elk on a hillside, a long ways away. Well, wolves are small enough; they're short enough to where they go undetected. So
Hmm.
um, until they let us start trapping wolves, then our wolf population continued to climb, and it was out of control. There was a time, I feel like, for me, with my experience in the woods, where I seen the most wolf tracks was probably 2007. There wasn't anywhere in North Idaho that I didn't go deer elk hunting, that I didn't see wolf tracks in the road. They were everywhere, and
Really?
wasn't just like one or two. It looked like the whole packs of wolves were running up and down every dirt road in North Idaho. Um, Fast forward, our game become depleted. Wolves spread out looking for more food. Um, then we were started. I'm not sure on the dates, but then they started allowing us to trap them, and some of the folks started getting pretty good at trapping. And in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so, people have gotten really good at trapping them. So they've actually made a big difference on the growing numbers of wolves. They've kind of decreased the number in some areas and then kept them at bay in others. So that's the real valuable tool with wolf management, is trapping.
Trapping.
But be that as it may, even with that, all of that being said, they're still hard to catch. I mean, these guys are trying to catch wolves in the dead of winter, let's say, and you have to check your traps every 72 hours. So it takes a lot of time commitment, takes a lot of resources. You have to have a lot of money for fuel and a snow machine of some kind. And then it's not like you just set your trap and walk away and you're going to get a wolf in it every time. You talk to the wolf trappers, and they'll go out on their trap lines, and a big snowstorm will come in and snow over them and freeze them all open to where they'll have a wolf that'll step in it, but the thing's frozen, so it won't even go off. So it's not a perfect science by no means. The wolves still have the upper hand,
And,
definitely.
and why do they have to check them every 72 hours?
That's state law.
Oh, it's the law. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Just so that they're not stuck there for however long or whatever if you get
Yeah.
them caught.
Yep.
Gotcha. From a humanities
Yeah.
perspective.
It's more humane that way.
Uh
Yep.
huh. Makes sense. So, have you, since the trapping started, has there been a noticeable resurgence in the herds? Are you starting to see that change in terms of the number of animals coming back, or has that remained a little bit stagnant?
In the areas I've been, I haven't seen a big resurgence of animals. Definitely, I feel like it's going to take a lot of years because I feel like there's still wolves present
Right.
in a lot of these areas that I go, and I run a lot of trail cameras all summer, and I haven't seen like, wow, holy moly, there's a lot more elk on my trail cameras. In the last couple years, in fact, that it's actually gotten worse than was 4 years ago, and I don't know what the deal is with that. A couple years ago, let's say 2, 3, 4 years ago, I didn't see as many wolf tracks in the mountains. This last year, this last summer, this last fall, I started to see more wolf tracks again in certain areas. So I don't know if those wolves are just had moved in from another area or what. But it's hard to say unless you had collars to track them, to kind of
Yeah.
understand their travel patterns. But wolves have a huge home range. They'll travel 20 miles a day easily and search for food. So
So, what's worse, the wolves or the people from the East Coast who keep coming out there and hunting every winter in larger numbers or every fall?
I'll take
Take
you
the
east.
wolves.
No, I'll take you East Coasters any day over wolves because you guys are only here for 10, 15 days a year, and wolves are here 24/7, and they're eating all they can in that time.
Yeah. So I heard I would like to know, like, what is the general attitude towards just the more, all these people that are coming out and hunting out west more and more every year from, guys like you who grew up out there and really have enjoyed, kind of having that be your space, and now all of a sudden you're having to share a lot of it.
I think for me personally, it's situational, right? I don't mind meeting. I don't mind seeing people in the woods that are respectful and they're just enjoying the natural resource just like I am, and they're respectful of each other. I don't mind. I don't mind that at all. What I do mind is people that aren't out there doing it right. They've got an
Mm-hmm.
axe to grind, or they think this. I bought I bought this $700 elk license and tag, and then by God, this is my ticket to free reign of Idaho, and I don't have to respect people or respect the land or respect laws of not to go behind locked gates with non-motorized gates or non-motorized trails. Those are the people that I have a real problem with.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like just like anything, a few bad actors, kind of spoil it for everybody.
Yeah.
So those people will kind of stand out, whereas the normal people, like I like, they kind of blend in and you never notice them, right?
Yeah.
But it's always the bad actors that kind of stand out and do some stuff that pisses everybody off.
Yeah. As you know, I live in South Carolina, and so we've had this proliferation of people since COVID from New York, New Jersey, all these northeastern states moved down here, and kind of like you said, there's most of them are moving down here to get away from what was up there and have a like-minded attitude. But every once in a while, you'll see somebody in a grocery store or something that just acts like they're from New Jersey,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, and you just like every time I see a New Jersey plate or a New York plate or something, that's all I think about is that person. So even this is my first fall coming out there, but I'm super sensitive to making sure that I do it the right way. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. I'm gonna, either go guided or go with a friend that lives out there, because I respect the way of life. I respect where you guys are coming from in terms of how long you've been out there, and I want to make sure that myself and hopefully other people, whether they listen to the podcast or they're listening to other podcasts, have that same respect when they decide to go out there for the first time and when they continue to go out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to. hunt out of state, in other states. And personally, I like to, when I'm there, I want to have a very minimal impact. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have any disruptions with local folks or other non-resident people. I want to respect the land. I want to pack out my garbage. I don't want to, I don't want to, you know, make a mess where people are going to have to kind of walk around it. I mean, I don't know. It just maybe it's just how I was raised. I want to be good to other people, and I want to be good to the land, and it's all beautiful public land, but it ain't mine, and I have to make sure it's as good or better than I left it. So I'm not going to disrespect the land or the local folks when I'm there, and I try to keep things under wraps. I don't want to, when I'm hunting other places, I don't want to blast all over social media, or maybe like let's say we're filming an elk hunt. Cameraman Dusty, he's always instructed we're not going to video any kind of beautiful landmarks or mountain ranges and stuff like that, just because I don't want to. Number one, if it's a great hunting spot, I don't want to blow it up for myself,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But I don't want to blow it up for the local folks that have been hunting there for 30 years. And they're like, oh, gee whiz, ever since that jerk came up here hunting, everybody
Put it on
recognized the
YouTube.
area. Yeah, everybody recognized the area and knows where to go. So, I want to try to be as, discreet as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when obviously this is something that's fairly new to me, but and you've been visible to me since I started hunting, started paying attention to western hunting, things of that nature. But when I know you've been hunting your whole life, when did you start to kind of become visible on social media and those, that kind of stuff? How did that whole thing happen?
Oh, well, my kids, they got social media first. They got the old Facebook. My wife and kids did. And
Because your
I'm
kids are
like,
like what, in their 20s now?
yeah, they're in.
This section of the podcast is brought to you by Ridgeline Athlete. Don't let your physical preparation hold you back from finding success this season. You can train anytime, anywhere with a professional coach who brings decades of performance training and hunting experience to every session, and I think that is important. Ridgeline Athlete provides backcountry athletes with safe, highly effective training programs that are built for the demands of the backcountry. Use RA Do Not Go 30 to get 30% off any training program. You can find them at ridgelineathlete.com or hit up Adrian on Instagram at ridgelineathlete.
their 20s. And must have been 2009. I got
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, or they got Facebook, and I'm like, oh, Facebook, this is stupid. But then I kind of seen like, oh, well, you can connect with all like your old friends, like your old
Uh-huh.
high school people or some of your old workmates or teammates or something like that. Oh, that's kind of cool. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do it. So got on there on Facebook and reconnected with people I went to school with, and it was cool because you could see their family, and oh, they had a baby or they have a grandbaby or whatever, and it was really cool. It's a good way to just kind of keep tabs on everybody. And then of course it's evolved a lot since then, as we know. But
Yeah.
then I think in 2012 I got Instagram. I'm like, oh, Instagram's way different than Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's more picture oriented. It's like you're sharing cool experiences and beautiful pictures and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, cool. I love pictures, right? So, um,
I had the same experience too. I was never like I had Facebook, but I didn't really do much with it. My wife did.
yeah,
But the minute I kind of got into Instagram, I was like, "Oh, this is like I got a lot more hooked on that."
yeah. So I watched other people share their beautiful photographs and their experiences behind that photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's just a scenery pic and maybe some deep thoughts behind it. I really love that. And I thought, oh man, I like that. I'm going to do that too. So I started sharing on there, and little by little over the years, you get more followers and you follow more people, and what it's Instagram has turned into now. It's like kind of a hybrid between TikTok and I don't know what, but it's a tragedy what's happened really, because it used to be really cool, but now it's just trying to be TikTok, which it's never going to be TikTok. I wish the people at Instagram would just be like, hey, let's go back to the way it was when photographers and artists and people like that they could have a good time on there. It's just instead of people building kooky, funny reels or whatever. I mean, I enjoy the reels too. I mean, there's a lot of funny stuff on there. I get my daily kicks out of laughing at silly videos or whatever. But I do miss the old days when just a cool picture would do as well as a kooky video would.
Yeah, because nobody will even look at a picture anymore, hardly, right?
Yeah,
Just put a picture up, and it's like people scroll by it, but
yeah.
it's
And the algorithm, is just it doesn't show them to people,
yeah,
and whether it's your shadow banned or they're just not showing that kind of content to other people is crazy. Um,
yeah. And I mean, personally, I don't spend a ton of time looking at Instagram. Like I'll do my post or whatever and put it up. I spend a lot more time on YouTube. I think probably because it's really more of a search engine, and I can look for specific things that I want to learn more about. That's kind of where I saw a lot of your stuff. Honestly, was YouTube first. Just
yeah,
as I was starting trying to do some research on calling and bugling and all that kind of stuff, and which one should I order? And so I mean that's kind of how I first found you was watching all your bugling stuff over on YouTube.
sure. Yeah, I consume a lot of YouTube as well. I don't have normal cable TV or any of that, so I'm usually watching some short videos on YouTube or some kind, or I use it a lot when I'm editing videos because I'm like, how do you do this one thing? And Adobe
Yeah,
Premiere
yeah,
is a monster to tackle and try to figure out how to use, but you can leverage YouTube pretty well to learn how to do all the stuff on Adobe Premiere. So it's been a big tool.
yeah. I actually just downloaded Adobe Premiere like last week. I'm starting to finally learn how to use it because I was like, okay, I got to learn how to edit better, other than chopping a piece out of the middle on an iMovie or something like that. You're right, it's super robust. The first time I went through the first tutorial, I was like, okay, my head's spinning in tutorial number one.
Yeah.
It's a
I feel
different deal.
like I feel like there's people who are really good at using Adobe, Adobe Masters. They're the same kind of people that are really good at like Excel.
Yeah,
Um, they use it the right way, the way it was designed to be used. And then you got guys like me. When I use Excel, I'm like, I just made up my own way to use it. And I feel like it's probably the same with Adobe Premiere. I'm like, somebody that's like an expert would look at how I do it and be like, dude, why are you doing it that way?
so are you editing all your own stuff? Like when you put one of those YouTube films out, does Dusty do all that for you? Do you edit some of it yourself? Or are you just editing your short stuff? Like what are you doing on there?
No, I edit everything.
Do you
Dusty
really?
Dusty in the
Wow.
past, he's edited some stuff for us. We had a New Mexico film here in 2021
Yeah, I
when we
saw that
hunted
one.
with
Hmm.
Ryan Lampers and Jason Phelps. He edited that whole thing, but everything else I edit.
And all the sound and the graphics and everything, like you do all that.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it looks like you've kind of figured it out. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, I'm one of those people that, like I say, you learn how to do it the way you do it, and
hmm
so I started editing videos way back on my phone. My very first videos, I edited on my cell phone, and then um, I got I got a Mac,
yeah,
got a
I'm a Mac
MacBook,
guy. Yeah.
and then I used iMovie to edit for quite a while until I outgrew it. Like if you watch my Mouth Tab Madness series of elk hunting on my personal YouTube channel, on the
Uh
Bugler
huh.
channel,
Yep.
then I edited all that on the iMovie,
Okay.
and I grew out of that pretty quick. And
That's
now
kind of
it's
where I'm at now too. Is I've kind of grown out of iMovie. Like I can't do the stuff I want to do at it. So now I'm staring down the barrel of Adobe,
yeah,
wide-eyed and saucer-eyed.
yeah. It takes a little bit of time, to break down the workflow, definitely. But once you kind of figure it out, it goes pretty quick. I've been editing a mountain lion hunt all day today, and and it went quicker than I thought it would. So it was good.
So how do you have time to do all that between what you're doing at Phelps?
Oh,
Or does
that's my job at Phelps.
oh, that is your job. So
That is
your
my
job
job.
is to make films.
My job is to like I do and I manage the social media at Phelps.
Okay.
I do all the content management. Um, whether I'm editing stuff. Here 2 weeks ago, I flew to Missouri and filmed I got behind the camera and filmed our turkey guys, James Harris and Steve Morgenstern, about their new calls. I filmed them. Turn and Burn got home, went to the trade show for a while, and then edited all that stuff. And then I think I did like 8 or 9 different videos out of that turkey content. Had to get edited for our turkey launch this spring, and then I'm still not done. I still got more turkey stuff to edit, and turkey stuff to edit's not my favorite. I like to hunt turkeys, but it's not elk hunting, right? So
right. I'm with you.
so,
So
but yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if maybe that part of Missouri is that like you can't say where you were. I've got family in Missouri. That's why I was wondering.
Oh, well, I flew into St. Louis, and I
Right.
was about an hour south of those guys. So, and we didn't hunt or anything. We just filmed at their workshop, and
Oh, so you're
and
down like kind of south of Festus. Like, did you remember seeing Festus as you drove south? That's about probably 40 minutes south.
yeah, I think I remember seeing that sign on the freeway. Let's see, what was the town? Is it shoot? Um, I'd have. I'm just picturing the video I just could put on there because I put the title of the town there. One of the guys is from Kirksville, which is up north.
Oh, my wife used to live there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know that area. Hmm.
and the other guy is just south of St. Louis, about an hour. What is it? It's Hillsboro.
Okay, yeah, I know where that is.
Yep.
So I know that you're involved with some kind of like a whitetail foundation in Idaho as well. So do you do a lot of deer hunting still, or is it like how much of that is your hunting time?
Yeah, I deer hunt every fall.
Hmm.
Whitetail hunting in Idaho was my first love. Elk hunting was my second, because my dad, when I very first started hunting, it's like, well, I'm not going to buy an elk tag. I'll just buy you a deer tag. And so that's where it all started for me. And back then, Idaho, our whitetails were huge. They were king. There was so many deer, and there were mature bucks. There was lots of does. You could walk out anytime you wanted to go hunting. You'd walk out in the woods, and if you walked 100 yards in the woods, you would jump a deer. A deer would run off. You'd see a white flag waving as it ran away.
It's not like that anymore.
No, it's not like that at all. It's there's times, like out on the public land, there's times you can spend all day out there. If you're walking and hiking and sitting and stuff, you may not see a deer.
Is it mostly predation or hunters or the like just a change in the like what's the cause of that?
There's lots of different. It's a multifaceted issue. You have predators, right?
Hmm.
We have wolves that we didn't have before. We have blue tongue and EHD, epizootic hemorrhagic disease. We have those diseases. That's kind of new. I think the first year we had those was like 2005 or so. So back in the 80s and 90s, we never had that issue
Yeah.
with the EHD and the blue tongue. You also have, back when growing up, all the timber country was mature around all the country you would hunt whitetails in. It was all mature, big, heavy timber, not a lot of openings. If there was an opening, it was a meadow or maybe a farmer's field or something,
Okay.
or a pasture. Today, fast forward, they've went through and logged all that stuff again, and so there's clear cuts. There's massive clear cuts, and I'm
Hmm.
not against logging at all. It's a renewable resource,
Right.
but the Fish and Game hasn't taken steps to consider the change of habitat. So they've lost a lot of their security cover. You have these massive clear cuts. When the first one, let's say they did like the first clear cut would be 600 acres, and then they would make another one a half mile away, another 600 acres. But as over a 5-year period, they've all kind of cut everything in between. So now you have
Hmm.
these clear cuts are 2 miles across. And during the whitetail rut, bucks get pretty ruddy and they start following their nose, especially all night. Well, they wake up, they kind of come out of their daze just after daylight, and they're in the middle of a 2-mile clear cut
Oh,
following a
geez.
stinky doe track.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
now
hard
they're
to kill them, is
vulnerable.
it?
Yeah, right. And they sell a lot of tags, so opportunity for tags are there, and people are opportunistic. They want to get a deer, whether they're just for meat. Some people want to hunt for horns, but the reality of it is, they're shooting too many deer. We've lost our age class between heavy harvest, um, disease in some parts of the areas, and then definitely predation.
Gotcha. So, well, so I know elk is your love, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I heard the story about, I think it was when you were a kid and you went and sat next to a pond because you thought you were going to shoot a bear, right? And you saw
Yep.
some elk come in, and you're like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
that, so for somebody like me, first time coming out, what's what are the top? Let's say you're somebody, because a lot of people that listen to this are East Coasters, and if they're thinking about doing something like that, what are your top 3 pieces of advice in terms of preparation?
Um, Number one, you have to have realistic expectations. What are your expectations? Are you wanting to do a backcountry backpack hunt where you pack in your bivy camp on your back and hunt? Like a lot of the YouTube guys do.
Is that even realistic for somebody first time out to do something like that?
Well, I feel like majority of people may not have the romantic experience that
Yeah, that's what I
they've
figured.
they've got in their head, right? um, you're gonna you're gonna you're gonna learn a lot about yourself, and limitations, and just certain areas are just not conducive to that. Now, let's say you're a fitness freak. And you're really good, muscular, you're very your cardio's in good shape, and you're pretty tenacious. You'll probably have a pretty good hunt. Now, will you kill something? Maybe, but I always say backcountry hunting is level 10 on the scale of difficulty. That's hard for everybody. That's hard for people who have been doing it their whole life, or noobs. So if you're new, I would set your expectations like maybe the first time out there, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want to try something that's a little easier, maybe hunt some of the front country that's a little more accessible. It's got a little more roads. That way, if I burn myself out on the first day or two, there's other options to keep me in the game. But if you backpack in, 4 or 5 miles, with all your camp on your back, and most new people pack way too much stuff, and you get up there and you blister yourself in the first couple days, or you have altitude sickness, you're probably going to be sidelined for another day or two, just trying to heal up and get enough energy to hunt around. And that's kind of like a harsh reality of it. So if you hunt the front country, maybe the edge of the back country, maybe you could have the best of both worlds. You can have some remote stuff, and then if things don't go like you hoped, maybe you can hunt some of the easier, more gentle stuff, and still stay in the game without just being, well, crap, I'm sitting here staring at my blisters at my feet in camp all day today. It'll give you some options.
So if you're sitting there looking, if you're e-scouting and and you're okay, let's say you're going to employ that strategy, then what are you looking at as you e-scout in terms of the kind of landscape, the kind of topography that fits that, that middle ground, like kind of, front country to the edge of the back country? What's the best way to scout that for somebody who's, new and trying to figure that out?
Well, it's kind of the edge country, that's you look on Google Earth or on OnX or whatever mapping software you like to look at. You look and see the road system, and where there's lots of roads, and then where it goes turns to roadless. So somewhere along the edge of that roadless country would maybe be a good place to start. That way you're not trying to drive on a road for 20 miles through roadless country and then hit a trailhead, and then you're deep at that point. You're going to walk in 5, 6, 8, 10 miles, and in the middle of roadless country already. Maybe you're going to hunt the edge of the roadless country. That way you have options. And you have to kind of be mindful of units too. So some game units are broken up by some of the units are more predominantly backcountry, roadless type country, whereas the other ones are more roaded. So,
And when you
but
say
if
roaded, are we talking paved roads, or what's
no,
considered a road? Just like
the
a basically a anything that's labeled a country road or has any kind of like a demarcation on it versus a
yeah,
trail.
yeah, you'll be looking at the map and it'll show like maybe there are roads that they're closed to pickups and that, like four-wheel drive SUVs and stuff. But like if you're on Onyx, it would say, four-wheel drive SUVs or whatever would go on them. Or maybe they're a gated road that you could take an ATV or a dirt bike or a horse. There's a lot of those kind of roads. They're old logging roads, right? That where they've maybe it's private timber country or it's like state endowment lands that have roads in it that have been logged, but some of the roads are gated, some are not. That's where all the research comes into play. But if you kind of hunt close to both areas, you could have best of both worlds, right? So if you wanted the backcountry or roadless experience, you could, drive a little ways and get into those kind of places. And then if you wanted to take it easy and walk an old gated logging road, for several miles and hunt that way, you could definitely do that too.
And so when you're doing that research, how does somebody find out whether, that's a gated road that, you probably can't get past with a vehicle versus something that is that marked on Onyx or Google Maps, or is that something that you have to call Fish and Game about?
So OnX has some really good features on it. A lot of times it'll show gates on there, or if you just click on that road, it'll tell you like the designation of that particular the road travel allowment. And then also if it's like national forest, you can get on their website and kind of figure out where you're wanting to go. Let's say that certain national forest, and you can even order like hard copy, like paper copy travel management maps that will show all the roads and trails in the area, and if they're roadless or what their designated use pattern is.
Do you think those are useful? Like, do you like having a paper map versus on the phone? Like, is there ever a place where you think that's beneficial over having it on your phone?
It is. It's nice to have that paper map because sometimes your phone screen's this big.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice just to pull up, open a map, especially if you're a note taker and if you did your stuff in the off season and you did some highlights and wrote notes and stuff on your map. Let's say you get stumped and your plan A, B, and C or your elk hunt is kind of fizzled out and you're like, well, crap, what am I going to do now? Well, you can always go to your map and start looking at the different places and be like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about this one spot, which, I mean, you can do that with your OnX as well, but it's a little electronic handheld device
Scale.
and it's sometimes it's just easy to look at a big piece of paper with marks on it and be like, oh yeah, if I'm going to go to a place, a lot of times I'll make a huge game plan, like A through Z almost. And sometimes I will print maps from Google Earth and like some areas. I'm like, okay, I want to hunt. I want to target this area. I'll print off a big, like 11 by 16 piece of paper with a Google Earth.
This section of the podcast is brought to you by Osseo Gear. With its one-of-a-kind raptor camo pattern, Osseo blends seamlessly into the whitetail woods. Its features and technology are designed specifically for the unique needs of bow hunters. I ran Osseo this past season, and from the 100-degree temperatures of the South Carolina swamps to the teens of the Illinois rut, Osseo has a system that covers you in every temperature. With 30 years of bow hunting experience, Osseo is backed by a lifetime guarantee. Use the code DONOTGO20 for 20% off the entire Osseo catalog. Find them at osseogear.com.
3D map printed with all my little icons that I wanted, because it'll have a little different it'll show terrain features just a little different than OnX does, a little better sometimes in my opinion. So I'll print those hard copy maps, And then I'll even type in some like little game plan things on like certain drainages and stuff that I want to hit, and I'll have just a hit list. Like, okay, day one, I'm going to hit this, and this, and just go on throughout the whole hunt, and almost have your have everything kind of laid out. Like, I'm going to hunt this place this day, this place that day, this place this day, um, and then just kind of have it all lined out. And then, of course, when I get to the hunt, I'm always like, well, crap, that doesn't make sense now because there's no elk over here. I'm going to go over to try this other spot. And I always hit the same spots, or I hit the spots that I have written on my list, but it may not be quite the order that I had first initially anticipated. Just depends on what I find when I get there to hunt.
Yeah. So just from a strategy standpoint, I know that there's kind of this. I heard you having a conversation and talking about the strategy of bugling versus kind of the spot and stalk. Do you think there's one that's a little bit more user friendly for a newer, elk hunter versus the other? Let's just assume that you can call, that that you're decent enough to figure out how to call some and get some of the basic calls down. Just from once you get past that, do you think there's one that's more conducive to a new hunter out there?
Mm, I think I think you should always learn how to call, and call well. And for me, that's been how I've found 98% of my success is through calling. But there's nothing that will replace good woodsmanship,
Mm-hmm.
um, and spot and stalk type of hunting tactics would be um, very woodsmanship heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Navigating, you know, identifying your target and then getting over there efficiently before it moves. Um, but what I do most of the time is once I locate them with my calls, I shut up and I try to get over there to them, without calling all my way over there. So I'm going to use kind of the best of both worlds. So I'm going to try to pinpoint, and I hunt a lot of country that you you can if you can see across the drainage because there's so many trees, then you probably wouldn't see an animal on the other side of it anyway. So you kind of have to kind of mark the sound just by, okay, I think it's over there by that big rock or whatever. I'm
So
going to go
there's
ahead
not a
and
whole
make
lot of
that.
glassing going on in that area where you're
No,
talking about. So you need
no,
to identify them through sound.
you need to identify them through sound.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to hunt more open country where there's not very many trees at all, um, calling will take a back seat to more of the spotting.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna want to get up high where you can see, at first light and then last light of the day, and then kind of make your game plans from there. Now, doesn't mean you wouldn't want to call in those kind of situations. You just have to get close, right? So it's like, oh man, there's a whole herd of elk over there 3 miles away. Um, I'm going to get over there and get close to them. And then it's real open terrain, right? So I'm not going to stand there, 300 yards from the elk out in the wide open and try to call them to me in the open. What I'm going to do is wait until they get into a place where they can't see very far. Maybe they're tucked into a little ravine or a little bench with some scrubby trees and some brush or something, and maybe there's a little terrain feature that they would have to come walk over to see where that elk sound is coming from.
Right.
That's what I'm going to use to my advantage. I'm going to get super close, but I'm not going to make a sound until I get very, very close to where I know they're going to be within my effective range when they come investigate.
And do you like I guess it probably depends on the situation and the part of the season you're in, but do you how much do you cow call versus bugling? And do you like I've heard some people say they always start with a cow call first. Is that what's your thought process on that, or is it very, because you've been doing it so long, very very specific to kind of what part of the season you're in and everything?
I've done both over the years, and I every year is a little different. What I try to start with, but sometimes I get lazy and I don't cow call before I. Typically, I want to cow call first.
Mm.
Sometimes I'll get lazy. I'm just like, I haven't had anything answer a cow call for 3 days. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
start out with a cow call. I'm just gonna bugle, and then if I get an answer, then I will start using some cow calls and see how they react. So if the bull reacts to cow calls, if he answers when I cow call, if he bugles at the cow calls, I'll continue to use them. Um, if he doesn't answer the cow calls, I will I won't completely quit using them, but I won't use them very much because for whatever reason he's not real interested in that cow call, but he likes the bugle. So if he answers that bugle every single time and hasn't really answered a cow call, then I'm not going to go real heavy on cow calls.
And then if you're going to start with a bugle, is it always a locator bugle, or is it depend again on the situation what kind of bugle you're coming out with?
It's all situational, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. Honestly, I
That's good
feel
to
like
know.
I feel like it's almost like turkey hunt. You're just trying to. It's almost like a shot gobble, right? So
Uh huh.
it's almost like you're just trying to get it out there. Now, if you want to dissect it and like be strategic and like, oh, well, I don't want to have my first sound be, you know, aggressive or too aggressive for this one elk, then yeah, I'm gonna do just like a non-threatening locator bugle, just a high pitch, it's one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I found over the years is sometimes bulls will answer that right away. Sometimes they won't answer until I give them a big, nasty, full lip ball bugle with a bunch of horrendous ground shaking thunderous grunts at the end, and then they answer. So after I've made 3 or 4 different, definitely distinctly different bugles.
Mm-hmm.
So
They all have
you just
personalities. You're trying to I guess, figure out which guy you're talking to and what they're going to
yeah,
respond to.
yeah, you just never know what they're gonna the bite on, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say elk hunting, elk calling, it's an experiment. You just never know what they're gonna answer, and I want to throw enough stuff out there to where I get one to bite, and then once I figure out what he likes to hear, then I'm gonna kind of tailor it to that. There's people out there trying to sell you that, oh yeah, you do this certain call every time, and you're gonna call them right in. You could do
That's
this.
why I was asking, because there are people that say that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people in the elk hunting space that'll tell you that, but I will. I'm not here to try to cause controversy, but majority of those people, I spend way more time, and I've spent the last 30 years with way more time calling elk than a lot of those people will that are selling those ideas. And I found the most consistent, the one call that works every time. There is none. Um, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
the elk they're so different. They're like a lot like people, and you just have to figure out what they want to hear on that particular day. Now, that bull one day he may love cow calls, and you go back 3 days later, and he won't answer a cow call, but he'll bugle his head off to a bugle, and you go back 3 days later, and he won't answer any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never found a silver bullet, call per se. I just know, but I do know that high quality sounding calls do work good, especially in areas where there's a lot of other hunters. So you want to sound authentic. So you want to be able to blow the best authentic sounding bugle. Now, does that sound perfect? Like compared to the guy on YouTube doing it? Maybe not. Maybe it's not that. Maybe if you listen to real elk, they're authentic. They have a certain sound about them, so
Yeah.
they're not that beautiful. It's just the textbook flawless bugle, right? There's a lot of bulls that sound really terrible, but if you're adding that emotion and that kind of authenticity to the sound, I think you'll get more bites than just perfect bugles.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to say, I started as soon as deer season got over this year. I started working with calls, and it took me a little while to get the diaphragm thing figured out. But the I had tried a number of the Phelps ones, and the Maverick one was the one that literally, like, amazing, because I guess I was putting a lot of air through, and that one really handles a lot of air. That's kind
yeah,
of my natural thing. But and then I got that before I got the bugle, and I got the V2, and the first time I did, I thought, because I never could put my arms around, like, okay, how does the diaphragm work with the bugle? And I just did it once, and it was like, holy crap, that's kind of easy. Now the people that live around me hate me, but luckily I don't have too many neighbors. But the ones that do give me the sideways when I'm out there in the yard jamming, working on my bugles, because my wife's like, mostly I have to do it in the truck. She's not a big fan of it. It's super loud. My dog goes nuts when I do it.
Oh yeah, yeah. My wife, you'd think she'd be used to it after all these years, but she don't like it too much. She'll roll her eyes and be like, "Do you have to do that in the house?" I'm like, "I'm working.
You're
I'm at
like,
work right now."
yeah, at least you can say it's work, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a
right.
champion elk caller, and this is work, so I have no excuse,
Yeah.
none. My wife's like, "That's how long away? Like 6 months?" I'm like, "Yeah, but come on, like I got to be decent at this."
My dog, he don't care about elk calls. He don't even like
Didn't
flinch.
flinch, huh?
But if I try to blow a duck call or an owl hooter or a wolf howler, oh
Uh huh.
man, he comes unglued. He starts barking and gets all riled up.
Yeah, mine gets riled up with the bugle, and then when I do the like a calf call with the diaphragm, my
Mhm.
cat goes nuts. Not my
Oh,
cat, my daughter's cat, but like
oh,
that thing comes unglued.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
It's crazy. Well, listen, man, we're on an hour. I can't tell you how much time I appreciate it. Like I could sit here and talk to you forever about it, but I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
I I did the most. I've got a YouTube short that's got, I don't know, like 800 or 900 views now, that I just did like 7 or 8 days ago, and it was, I took somebody's advice, and I did, I found this video on YouTube just of like three, I think there was like 4 or 5 cows and a couple calves that were just sitting there back and forth yapping at each other, and
Yeah.
I just started trying to mimic it with my diaphragm. And then I did a short where it was like they were on one side, I was on the other side, and they would do one and I would do one. They would do one and I would do one. And I was like, I'm getting decent at this. So that's what I put on YouTube, and it got a lot of views. But I was that Maverick. That's a great call. Like I love that call.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, good. Yeah, when I designed that, I was very selfish. And I'm like, well, I'm going to make this thing for me. And I wanted to do everything that I could possibly want it to do, but nobody else will probably like it.
Oh, I
It,
love it.
pro- it probably won't even sell. This will probably be for just advanced callers. But the crazy part is, like noob callers, like brand new callers, they like it. And one thing I've kind of learned after, teaching a lot of folks on how to use calls is a lot of new callers have no point of reference on how hard to blow a call. So
You're exactly right.
one person thinks, man, I have to blow this thing with all my might because an elk's a big, loud creature. And another person just doesn't have the lung capacity or the wherewithal to blow that hard. So what I found is like there's a lot of new people that do like the call. And and some of them will even say, they first got into it, they really liked it, but once they kind of learned how to control their calls, they end up liking a couple of the others a little better, just because they finally learned how to get that their air pressure control better.
I actually found that I feel like and again, I'm pretty new at it, but I feel like I can control that call a lot better than, like, I had tried 4 or 5 of the other ones, and I think they were all lighter. They were labeled as
Yeah,
beginner calls,
yeah,
and I had a lot more difficulty controlling those. And when I tried the Maverick, I was like, all of a sudden I could hit all the different ranges. I could hit a much higher pitch than I could with the other ones. I felt like it was a lot more controllable than a bunch of the other ones I tried. Now, like you said, I have no point of reference, but like when I put that in, it was just kind of natural. I was like, oh yeah, this is the right one.
yeah. Yeah, well, that's why we make so many different ones, is just because everybody's so different, and um, I got and it doesn't depend. It doesn't matter on body size or anything. Like there's a little girl who's like 14 years old that can blow that Maverick like better than most men. And then there's great big dudes that they don't like that Maverick at all. They like some of the real thin latex stuff.
Hmm.
So you just never know. So it's cool to have something for everybody.
Yeah. Well, y'all make a great product. I love it, and I can't wait to get out there this fall and enjoy what you guys are blessed to live with every year. So I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to get on here and happy to talk hunting, man. I love it.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.
Yep. Anytime. Anytime.